And in August 2019, I did my first crypto event here. And there I met G and my other co-founder from S21, and then Elliot. And we started co-creating this community called S21. And a lot changed. Since then, we hosted more than 20 local and global speakers, organized a one-day conference with more than 15 people, co-organized one NFT gallery, the first virtual and physical gallery in Bali, hosted 24 networking meetups, distributed more than 100 free tickets to paid events, online and offline conferences, and we distributed 40 Coinfest Asia tickets to the contributors of Bali crypto and blockchain space. And why is this important? Because it's important for me to convey this meaning about what we are trying to do here. It's as a cash negative initiative, why we care, why we are doing it, without getting much in terms of financial rewards. We basically stand for collective value generation, and that's what we care for. S21 stands for Satoshi 21 million for the limited supply of Bitcoin. And for all those anonymous value creators and silent actors, for everybody's wealth now, almost, in this community, it's important for us to co-create value and give back to the community and here, because we are an expat community anyway. So it was a couple of weeks ago here, a lot of different leaders of their own communities came here after my announcement that we lost a friend of ours, my other co-founder, James Criddle, in a tragic traffic accident. And it was only 3 weeks after another losses from the community, Julia. And I kind of want to dedicate this to them, because James's death kind of inspired everybody to collectively own it and co-create this Bali Crypto Week. And now it's a thing, only after 6 weeks, which is a very short notice. So I want to dedicate this to James and Julia and all the solo fighters, all the crypto queens of the self-sovereign world. And thank you for coming. We're now ready to, I think, after this sad part, to listen to Kumardev. So it's like every attempt in Bali, it's usually 98% of Bali magic, 2% tears, blood, sweat. So this Crypto Week Bali is also one of them. Coinfest Asia and Coinfest Asia, Jetstar are the sponsors. Thank you for believing in us, this crazy idea to throw a Crypto Week only 6 weeks before. And Bruno, without you it was impossible. Cecilia, it was impossible without you, our beautiful community moderator of S21. The guy with the blue mustache, it was impossible without you, Cosmo. Thank you, Adrian, Emilio, the silent actor of the Crypto Week. Many others here, thank you so much, and so happy and so proud to see everybody here, and the one and only Kumardev Chatterjee. Thank you.
So I think that we haven't actually applauded everybody, because we haven't applauded the founder and the progenitor and the person who made this all possible at all, Melissa. So let's hear it for her. So I was thinking of starting with the story of how Melissa and I met, and I thought we'll save that for the drinks later on. It'll be more fun. But it's a great honor to be here, and for a number of good and better reasons. The good reasons are that I think it's very important, as I mentioned in my post as well, that the crypto revolution, this decentralized revolution, is not re-centralized in the same OECD member state capitals. So in London, in Paris, in Barcelona, in New York, in San Francisco, we need to get away from that. If it is about decentralization, if it is about empowerment, we need to bring tech, progress, and prosperity to all over the world, and Bali is a great place to do that. So thank you, Bali, for setting this up, right? Second, I think it's super important that we don't have the same crypto bros in every, taking off from where the tech bros left off, right? So if you've heard about Mr. Newman, after burning through, 30 or 40 billion or whatever it is, has now just been given a whole lot of money, again, to do the same thing by his bros in the valley. And we've got to break this, right? If we don't break this, we're going to perpetuate the same mistakes and the same devastation that we've had in terms of inequality by just pushing the same people in the same cities and in the same networks over and over again. We've got to move away from a bro culture, and that means first and foremost empowering women and supporting empowered and women and female leaders to get to that next level. And we've got to do that collectively with the community, but especially as leaders in the space, we need to stand behind the women who are actually making a difference, right? And the third reason I think is also super important, for me at least, is that Southeast Asia has always been seen as an afterthought when it comes to the tech world, right? It's always passed over. Okay, you've got some developers here or in Vietnam or in Malaysia, but it's never seen as a place from where you get innovation, where you get entrepreneurship, and from where you've got the next generation of leadership coming through that. And so for that reason alone, I think we should have more events and more community and more engagement in Southeast Asia and in Asia Pacific, and not just back in good old Europe and US and all over again, right? So for all those reasons, when Melissa said, do you want to come? I was like, absolutely, I want to come. And then, of course, I believe she worked 48 hours every 24 hours to make that happen. And again, thank you everybody else who's here. Bruno, thank you as well. And Emilio, Adrian, Cosmo, I've heard of for you a lot. And Cecilia as well, and everybody else. I'm very honored to be here. And what I will try to do in the next 45 minutes is encapsulate not just what the metaverse is in terms of technology, because of course we know we want to hear about that, but why are we today talking about the metaverse and decentralization? What is actually happening? What is driving what's going on? With that, I hope to start, and I hope this works. It works. Great. So first and foremost, let's look at where this all started, which is effectively the idea of digital acceleration. So digital acceleration is something that has been going on for a while now, right? It hasn't started yesterday, and it didn't start with crypto. Digital acceleration has been going on ever since we started exchanging data over the internet about 20 years ago. But of course, it has picked up pace in the last 5 years or so. And what has happened specifically in the last 2.5 years, or 3 years, you would say, is these 4 areas. Number one, NFT traction. When the first NFTs were published, and they were published back in 2016 with the CryptoKitties, the guy from Andreessen Horowitz, which, by the way, was the first VC company to back NFTs, the guy almost lost his job. And he had to move to New York to another VC firm just because of the backlash, because he had spent 16 million backing a firm which created the CryptoKitties. And he couldn't explain to anybody why CryptoKitties would be important. So that's, but now, of course, you have the NFT traction. And of course, although NFTs are still technically a complex and sometimes conceptually a complex thing to understand, the fact is NFT traction has taken off. And I have some data later on to show you what exactly that means. Number two, digital payments. So digital payments has been on and off for some time, but you, for all of the expat community living here, you would realize that if everything had to be done by cash, it would be impossible, right? I mean, just you can't even bring in more than $1,000 into the country in equivalent currency, so it has to be digital. But crypto took that to a whole next level, where it was really digital. The whole chain, from the point at which you generated that revenue to the point at which you used that, was entirely digital. You didn't have to touch cash or fiat at any point. And major companies have taken this on. So, I'm talking about 50% of the top banks. I talked to a lot of these banks. And even in places that you haven't heard of, the banks are moving to supporting crypto. They just don't talk about it because, of course, there's a regulatory issue, and I'll come back to that. But everyone is moving to the point that your asset will be digital and not physical, and the physical will be an option, right? And I'm willing to bet here that within 5 years, we'll see the world's first digital decentral bank, right? Which is basically a sovereign institution that regulates or manages decentralized currency of a nation, of a sovereign state. Entertainment and retail. So when F1 did the 100 million crypto sponsorship, of course, people were like, yeah, whatever, right? But that was really a turning point, and a lot of companies after that have now moved on to doing crypto and working with crypto in the entertainment retail. In fact, entertainment and retail is the biggest probably area for crypto today after you've gone to land digital real estate. Now, when I had created these slides about a few months back, Decentraland had of 2.4 million, but today there's one that has topped that. That's a 4 million land sale in Sandbox, right? And that Atari, I don't know how many of you remember Atari, but Atari sold that on Sandbox. So these are the four sort of pillars that are driving the digital acceleration behind the metaverse. So well before you get to the metaverse, and obviously people say, what is the metaverse? And I've heard both sides. Some saying, oh, it's just Second Life all over again. I've also heard people say, oh, this is nonsense. No one's going to wear a VR set forever. But across the whole range, you've got to understand this is not coming out of the thin air or out of the blue sky. This stuff has been going on for a while, and there are solid changes across the economy, across the world, that have been supporting this transformation to the metaverse, right? And so the metaverse explosion, and this slide again tells you how rapidly things are moving, because when I did that slide a few months ago, this was the data. This was the correct data, 805 billion. Today, it's 1.5 trillion. The projection by 2030 from McKinsey is 1.5 trillion, and that's their narrow band projection. If you go into the Citibank's projections, the broadband, or let's say the broader projection of the metaverse economy, they're talking about 30 trillion. So if that actually happens, that will be an economic epoch that we've never seen before, right? And of course, you have these companies and then many other companies announcing, but the key takeaway here is that this is not a pie in the sky. There are some extremely solid and well-financed movements in different industries that have taken place before we even got to the metaverse, right? So, next slide. So let's look at the McKinsey numbers. And McKinsey, a lot of friends in McKinsey, and I troll them a little bit sometimes. They're very nerdy, and they're hard. Their reports are very data dense, and obviously, it's hard to extract things. But the numbers are striking, and they got it right. So that's what they're predicting: a 5 trillion economy, out of which 2.6 trillion e-commerce. E-commerce includes entertainment and retail, right? And then, of course, advertising about 206 billion. But what is amazingly and extremely striking, I would say, is that in 2021, at the end of 2021, 57 billion was invested in the metaverse economy. And the first 5 months of 2022, 120 billion have been invested. So next time somebody challenges you and says, oh, the metaverse is going, oh, that's just not going to go away, ask them, the people who are investing this 120 billion, which is the world's largest VC firms, largest family offices, financial institutions, sovereign institutions, and the people who are managing that money and making this, are they all collectively in hysteric that you've got to this number? They're not. They're super smart, they're connected, they know what they're doing, and they manage and manipulate markets, so they know exactly what's going on. That 120 billion number is going to explode in the second half, and next year it'll just go off the roof, right? But if you want to break it down to what you call, I remember that last time we had a financial crisis in Europe, there was this, I think it was Clinton who said that, Hillary Clinton said, well, it's not about Wall Street, it's about Main Street. So, so what does Main Street say? Main Street, 60% of consumers, that's every consumer, right? They've just polled that. prefer at least one activity in the virtual world compared to the physical. Compared to the physical, not in addition to the physical, but as a replacement. They prefer one. 60%, that's a huge number. And actually, if you look at the studies from the Pew Institute and the global studies by YouGov and others, you will see the younger generation, and sorry guys, but we're no longer young. Those who are still young, most of us are not young. I don't know if there's an 18-year-old back there, but most younger generation, for them, the virtual is real. And the real is actually abstract. They do not want to engage with the real because the real is problematic, the real is more expensive and more complex, and the real forces you to make choices that you may not want to make, for example, on your gender, right? So the virtual is for them the number one thing that they want to do. So they're not buying a Gucci jacket offline, they're buying a Gucci jacket online. They're not spending $20 to buy an Adidas cap, although it's not by Adidas, but they're spending $120 to buy the NFT of the Adidas cap that they can then wear in Sandbox. This is real. This is what's driving the numbers, right? And then 79% of everybody has made a purchase in the metaverse. But, okay, the metaverse here is a bit broad because they're talking about NFT platforms as well. And 59% are transitioning their activities. Now, you could say, well, McKinsey, yeah, these guys and all that, and let's take these numbers with a pinch of salt. But even if you put a whole dollop of salt, like 2 tablespoons of salt into that, these are still very significant numbers for an industry that did not exist 18 months ago. I mean, if I was here last August, I wouldn't be talking about the metaverse. I'd be talking about something else, AI, ML, etc. Right? So this is what is fueling all of that. So if you didn't believe it before, believe it now, because the numbers behind that are super solid. And who's adopting that? So the next question, obviously, is who's doing that? So these are the major sort of industries. This is the kind of Gartner curve with the McKinsey wash. But energy and resources, high tech, media, entertainment, of course, and things like construction, telecommunications, transport are falling behind. But so there's a whole range of industries. So it's not just people buying Bored Apes, yeah? And it's not just people in the metaverse are not just gamers. And this is a common misconception that it's only for gamers, and if you're not a gamer, then you're not in the metaverse. It's absolute nonsense, yeah? There are industries across the space that are adopting it at a different pace. We've got this in a different area. And so what is the basic business model? What is the basic, let's say, the raison d'etre that's driving that? Very simple. The more time you spend on the platform, the more you spend. And the more you consume, and more everybody makes money. That's exactly how Facebook, Twitter, and everything else works. Facebook has done that very well because you consume. On Twitter, you can't really consume, right? You can maybe click on an ad or something, or a political ad, but it's not very profitable. But on Facebook, you consume. You spend. Others spend so that you consume. That's what has driven that 6.7 billion revenue there. And that platform economics applies everywhere. It applies offline and applies online. If you can create a platform, which is basically a construct in which there's a community, whether that's offline or online, and that community meets, and members of that community continue to meet and continue to engage on that platform, the platform owner will make a revenue out of that. And so, very simply, what's happening in the world today? Population is increasing. Even after COVID and even after wars or whatever, population is increasing. Number two, internet penetration is increasing. Even in countries that were, let's say 5 years ago, very slow internet adoption, today are leading internet adoption, right? And number three, the population, there are younger people who are, as we saw from the previous slide, preferring to spend time online than offline. So combine the three, a growing population, growing access to the internet, high-speed internet, and a preference to spend time online, and that's the fundamentals behind all of those numbers you just saw. So let's break down the market opportunity. So that's how it looks like 2021, 2030. And look at, this is a 27.5 billion, and if you add the whole number up, it comes to a certain thing. But social media obviously will be there, gaming, digital marketplace, mixed reality, wearing, so that's Niantic, for example. Pokemon Go is an example of mixed reality, but that's a very sort of basic example. There are proto-metaverses like Roblox, like obviously Meta's Horizon, which is launching in Spain next week, Spain and France as well next week. And humanoid robotics are there. But this is a snapshot. I mean, if I had to do the whole thing, it'd probably be a different type of slide. But just look at the growth rates. For any of you who've studied economics or finance, these are incredible growth rates, 55%, 54% CAGR. It looks like a dream, but it's happening. And that's what's driving the investment and all the energy. And to break it down to simple things, in April 2021, a Bored Ape was about, their total sales, the total sales of the Bored Ape 2021 was $37,000. And look at the number in May 2022. And look at how that's grown in 1 year. Right? So that brings it home. All of those numbers, those Excel sheets, those macros, that brings it home. So there are different ways in which you can monetize the metaverse, and we'll get into the technology behind that. But effectively, fractional ownership, NFT monetization, digital advertising, and breakout to the physical world are the key use cases. So fractional ownership is very simple. You go online, you buy a part of an online rental, and you pay for that with your NFTs, and after a point in time, you own that space, whether that's land or a building or whatever. And then cities like Neom, for example, you can actually buy. You will be able to buy once it's implemented. You will be able to buy your apartment online, customize it, and when you have a certain number of NFTs, Neom will build that apartment for you offline, as customized by you. And this is a model that other companies are starting to follow. So I'm willing to bet that your next real estate purchase in a few years from now will actually be first virtual and not real, and then somebody will build that. So there will be virtual condominiums, and when the virtual condominiums have a certain number of people who've bought virtual land and customized and have paid for it virtually, they will then build the offline condominium, and that de-risks the construct for them to build that and makes it easier for you to fund that over a period of years. So advanced mortgages, not the kind of mortgages we have now, which you pay for 10 years. Here you'll pay for 5 years up front, and then they'll build it for you. Target users, I'm not going to go too much in detail over here, but I think it's the data is the data, but effectively, if you look at it from on the left-hand side, you see that the young, open-thinking, environmentally conscious, highly educated, diverse, curious, engaged, basically describes us here, right? And it's a growing population globally. What I said, I think I said that to Han yesterday, globally local, right? We are globally local. So we are local in different places. I'm local in like 5, 6 different places, but I'm global. I cannot say any one local is my permanent base or whatever. What does permanent mean anymore? That's the population that will be on the metaverse and spend on the metaverse just as we spend offline. So what's the fundamentals of a metaverse, technically speaking? This sort of, for me, is one of the big bugbears, because when I hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm building a metaverse, and I built a metaverse, and my metaverse is online in 2 weeks, I'm like, yeah, okay. Right? So I am, as you know, the co-founder of the Neo Metaverse, and okay, it's a city, but the original starting budget is 1.2 billion. Fortnite has already raised 4 billion. Zuckerberg has an endless budgetary treasure box. He's already spent 10 billion, right? And Sandbox has raised 2 billion, and SoftBank will spend whatever to make that happen, because that's the comparative risk. Singapore is calling it a digital city. Calling it just sometimes a good old smack, yeah. Singapore is calling it a digital city, but it's going to be a metaverse. And of course, Korea, from where I was before I just came, I'm working with them. They're also going to build. Seoul is going to have a metaverse pretty soon, right? The home of Pokemon Go, they're going to have a metaverse pretty soon. But so these are the 6 things that are, for me, fundamental. So it's called the Metaverse BS check. So next time somebody says there's a metaverse, ask them if they have all 6, not part of them, but all of them. Number 1, digital twin. You need to be twinning something. A metaverse is not an abstract piece of land. Then Gran Turismo would be metaverse, right? It's an example of what you can build online. You can build an endless. So it has to be a digital twin of something that real exists. So Metaverse or Bali, for example, would include this club. It doesn't have to be complete, but that has to be the game, that you should be able to live in the physical version of the metaverse. Otherwise, it's an online game, a 3D online game. It's not a metaverse, right? Social platform. A metaverse is not about sitting in your own house, and it is a social platform. You will have multiple people, just like you have multiple people in the physical world, and you'll be able to interact and have different profiles, and you can have multiple profiles of yourself. So if you don't have that social platform where you can engage with others, it's not a metaverse. Digital marketplace, of course, you need to be able to transact and monetize, but very key to remember here is that a metaverse does not need crypto. And there's a sort of, again, a misconception that you can't have a metaverse without having crypto. You can absolutely have a metaverse with zero crypto, right? Crypto is just a choice for how you want to monetize or how the transactions should be done. You can, you can transact any which way you want in a metaverse. But you have to have some sort of marketplace where you can exchange and trade, because that drives engagement in the social platform. Integrated mixed reality. So as I said, it's physical and digital, which means that I should be able to stand here and maybe I'm on a metaverse somewhere, or my profile on the metaverse, which is AI driven, is doing something while I'm doing something else. But there has to be a link, right? And that's going to be the biggest differentiator. There's going to be a lot of metaverses that are virtual only, and therefore I would call them, proto-metaverses or pre-metaverses. But to be a real metaverse, you need to have your avatar on there, and you should be able to interact between your avatar and yourself physically. So you pick up a coffee here, you should be able to, in some cases, have that coffee on there too. That ability to have integrated mixed reality. You put on these glasses, and what you see around you is what is physically available and what is available virtually. But you're able to interact with that. It's not just a projection. Gamified experience, you're not going to spend, one of the biggest issues Decentraland has is that people have stopped using Decentraland, because once you walked around a few buildings and you've seen some stuff, what do? So you have to engage every day, and there has to be something to engage you. There has to be gamification. There has to be ability for you to create, co-create, sell, transact. So there needs to be that engagement aspect. And real-time translation. This, I would say, of the 6 is probably the one that you could probably say, okay, well, real-time translation will do a minimal version of that. But remember, the metaverse is not just about typing. It's about communicating. So your expressions, you're going to talk in different languages, right? Unless everybody chooses English, which, okay, as an English native, yeah, I would still say that's a very bad idea, that we recreate in the metaverse the same fact that everybody has to speak English. This shouldn't be the case. We can discuss this in detail, but this gives you an idea of what you need to do. So, yeah, you can use, this is basically a technical overview of a very high-level technical, I would say conceptually technical overview. But just to give you an idea of the number of different technologies you need to build a metaverse. So all that stuff I said in the slide before, all of these are aspects, right? Each of them have a technology stack, and they have to integrate. So that's a lot of integration that needs to happen before you even get to that. So again, if somebody says, I'm building a metaverse in 2 months' time and launching it, you don't even have to think twice about what kind of a scam that is. So here's what's happening right now. In the gaming industry, Activision, EA bought by Microsoft. Activision bought by Microsoft, Nintendo, of course, Epic, Sony, big players. And you've got some proto-metaverses, NVIDIA, which is not really a metaverse, it's actually a tool set to create metaverses. Fortnite, obviously, Roblox. Apple's trying very hard. The new Apple releases would be interesting this year. We'll see what they come up with. But they're trying. Niantic is obviously there. And then you've got the marketplaces like Coinbase, etc. I think they're going to be there in the metaverse space, but they're not going to drive that. But what all of that tells you is that the key issues in the metaverse, once all that happens, is exactly what happens in the real world. How do you manage a crowd, right? It's one thing to say everyone will be on their best behavior, but what is best behavior? Different countries, different people, different communities have different standards of what is best behavior, right? And what are your boundaries compared to somebody else's boundaries? There are many societies in Southeast Asia where it's completely normal to hug and touch and feel. Also in Italy, in Spain, it's completely normal. Try going and doing that in Norway, you might actually, somebody might call the cops. Try going and hugging a Swedish person on the bus stop and see what happens, right? So, right? So how do you translate that onto the metaverse when somebody is wearing a completely different, you don't have any idea what their constraints are, what their boundaries are, or who they are, right? So you've got digital conduct, your conduct and the harms. What is the limit and how do you manage that? You've got the platform unusability. Somebody on my platform does something bad, but what does that mean? Where's that person? That person's user profile. Is that user profile registered somewhere? What laws apply in that country? Some places don't allow alcohol, for example. It might be the most common use case. And somebody says, I want to go and buy alcohol. They're probably committing a crime, so to speak, in their country, but is that a crime in the metaverse, which is established somewhere else? All of these things have not been worked out. Have not been worked out. And unlike with social media, metaverse companies will not have to register in every company. Because by default, companies are registering onto the metaverse, right? So you'll have a global metaverse company based out of wherever, transacting wherever. You don't have to be in a specific country, so you don't follow the laws of any particular country. And of course, sovereign interests. I mean, geopolitics is back, history is back. So what are your interests versus the interests of the country? And what if the country deploys certain actors on the metaverse to lobby, to influence, to take actions? How is that going to be managed? Right? And so obviously there are lots of details here and we can discuss them over drinks and stuff. But basically what comes out of this is that ethics and conduct are super important. You're not going to have a metaverse economy without these things being solved. It's just not going to happen. Right? Oops. If you look at this platform thing, this is probably the most important one. Somebody was telling me about a DAO. Do you already know that there have been at least 2 or 3 DAOs in the US that have been sued? The DAO members have sued each other because you've taken decisions that were against your interests and you invested money in that. And the DAO is not a company. If it is a company, then there is a board. Who's in that board? If it's a board, then it's not decentralized anymore. Right? And in some cases, you've had governments, and of course, the US government has taken a lead in doing that. US government has sued members of DAO saying you're conducting illegal activity around money laundering. But who? Is it the DAO? Is it individual members? Maybe it's legal in their country. So what exactly are you prosecuting? But these are questions that will determine a lot of how that investment is actually implemented. Obviously, sovereign interests I talked about. The other thing that is a big sort of bugbear in the metaverse world today is interoperability. So interoperability is very simply, you buy this Adidas NFT, hat, NFT in Sandbox, and tomorrow you want to go on Decentraland, it doesn't follow you. It's not possible to do that today seamlessly. You can't just log into this and log into the other one. I mean, think about Facebook, Twitter integration, right? That took a few years. In the metaverse world, this is super complex. Because of that picture back there, multiple layers have to be integrated. There are no standards as of now. There will be standards, but there are no standards as of now. Sorry? You need the mic? You can't hear me. Sorry. No. Take 2 mics. I have 2 hands, so 2 mics. Hello? You can't hear me either. Hello? Okay. Great. So do you want me to restart? Nah, I'm joking. Top, yeah? Okay. No, so coming back on interoperability. So interoperability is a key issue because interoperability is about 3 aspects. Number one, technical interoperability. So there are companies working now on standards. So there has been the Web3 standards organization that has been set up. A number of companies, including Neom, are a part of it, and they're trying to work on standards. But the number one rule on standards, the standards are always 10 years too late. Yeah. So standards are set by the dominant players. That's how it works. Dominant players, they engage in standards organizations, but then their platform becomes dominant, and the economic question then is, if you don't comply with their standards, you're just going to be shut out of their market. And so that's exactly why Zuckerberg is spending billions. So everybody asks you the question, why is Zuckerberg spending billions right now? Because he wants to be the dominant platform, and then there can be challenges. But by that time, he has your data and the standards have been set, because if your company doesn't work with the Facebook Horizon platform, it shuts itself out of 1 billion users. Which company wants to do that, and which VC will fund a company that does not operate on the Facebook platform, on the Horizon platform, right? So the standards race is even more critical to the adoption of the metaverse economy than the technology race. We will solve the technical issues. We'll finally get there. But the standards, the country or the company or combination thereof that sets the standards will dominate the metaverse space, right? Which is why it's important that we all learn about it and we take part now to say, hey, we know you're going to set the standards, so here's what you need to do. That's how the internet survived, because the internet, when it started growing out of ARPA, and when the standards bodies, initially that were there, they were full of academics and citizens groups, and so we have an open internet. But even a few years ago, Mr. Pai was trying to change that and say you can have traffic that has priority. The moment you allow for internet where certain sets of traffic have priority over others because they pay more, finished. You're done with the internet economy, right? So same thing in the metaverse. If there is one dominant platform and you are unable to sell goods and services on that platform, the metaverse economy will crash. So it's important that all dominant platforms, whether they are closed OSs or open OSs, they need to have that API to engage, and that means public engagement, right? Consistency, we just talked about, having the same asset in the same way. Data access, of course, super critical, but cost of ownership. I think this is the key thing, is that what will it cost to build a metaverse? Currently, it's in the billions to build an actual metaverse. To build companies that can sell products and goods and services and technologies into metaverse companies or into metaverse platforms, that's a lot less. Proto-metaverses, which are kind of like the metaverses, have a few features, but not all the 6 features. You can do that for a few million, 5 to 10 million. You can probably get a metaverse-like, application or platform for a couple of million, right? But real metaverses will be expensive, which means that, again, it comes back to who owns that and who is setting the standards around that. Closer? Okay. Oops. So here, for example, I'm just taking a basic example right now. I mean, I'm saying it's custom because obviously I can't put Neom's name on it, but that's an example of what $1 billion+ can get you. Decentraland is 2 plus, and that's 4 plus, right? So just today, if you were to go and try and put a asset, a hat, on all these 3 metaverses, you can't do that at the click of a button to any one platform. You have to do that individually. In the case of Fortnite, they have to agree that you can have a hat shop on there. It's not automatic. You have to email them. Good old email, right? And then they have to have a partnership and say, yeah, you can have your hat shop, and then you go and buy at a market price, whatever the market price is of the piece of land where you want to have your hat shop, etc. Decentraland is a little bit easier because you can identify the plot, buy it, and then set it up. And in custom ones, so ones that are owned by countries or enterprises, of course, first of all, who are you, right? And why should we even have you on there? This is today, yeah? We've not even got... There is another thing that I want to say to everybody. We don't have today a functional metaverse anywhere in the world. So if anybody says, I am the owner of a metaverse company that's live, okay, you know what to do with that person, right? There is no functional metaverse. They're all proto-metaverses, and the first functional platforms will be out at the end of the year. If you talk to Zuckerberg and say, oh, Horizon's the metaverse, he'll tell you it's a metaverse in development. And they're trying to get data, engagement, feedback, and they're building on that, right? So this is the situation right now. Imagine where that will be in 2 to 3 years from now. So if you're thinking of getting into this economy 3 years from now when it gets built out, yeah, you're just going to be priced out of it. You will not be able to do that. I want to talk about the impact of metaverse on film as one of the use cases, one of the industries, because to end on what the possibilities are. I've told you a little bit about what the numbers are behind this, what's the financial situation, what is the landscape, what does it look like technically, what are some of the big barriers, what are the models. Let's take a use case in like film. Now, I wonder, okay, we've all heard of Ready Player One and all that, but there has not been a metaverse film, because first of all, there's no metaverse, but a proto-metaverse film yet, right? But there have been steps, and there are steps being taken. So what are these steps? So the 75th Cannes Film Festival was the first one that went live on the proto-metaverse of Fortnite. So if you couldn't go to Cannes, or you couldn't find a space to stay in Cannes, you could actually log on to Fortnite and go to the Cannes Film Festival and watch the films and the awards. They didn't have everything, but they had a pretty good. And they have just started that. So next year, it'll expand, etc. So Cannes, as usual, was at the leadership, at the helm of that. Disney is planning, of course, Disney is planning the first film on the Metaverse, right? And then you are going to have Disney theme parks in the Metaverse. So they don't care about what Ron DeSantis says. Who's Ron DeSantis? He's nobody. They can just close down that whole thing in Florida and build that on the Metaverse, and absolutely, they will make 3 times what they're doing. So they're running to get their characters onto the Metaverse before the license expires. Lionsgate, I love Lionsgate, and Sandbox are bringing Hellboy, Rambo, and Saw. I don't know who made the decisions there, but why Rambo and why Saw? But okay, I guess they're trying to appeal to different people. Hellboy, I think, is okay, and but these are coming to the Metaverse today. So these will be the first films. You'll have to wear your headset, etc., and go on to the Sandbox platform. I was in Paris. I'm sure some of you guys were in Paris for the Paris Blockchain Week. And of course, I talked to Sebastian, and he's like, oh, yeah, but that's just what's announced. What's coming is even bigger, right? That's why SoftBank are spending so much money on Sandbox, because they're really going to go out for this particular use case. And then that's the story of our friend Vitalik, right? And so Lumiere, which is a French company, and really Scott Free are coming together to build that on Decentraland. And that, I think, will be a little bit more than what Disney and the others are doing, but this will be really immersive, obviously, with Vitalik involved. So, yeah. So I just want to finish on this one, is that if you think about the history of film, right, it's what? Less than about 100 years now. Pre-talk, maybe 1920s. First films were out in 1909, 1911, right? It's probably one of the most dominant cultural icons. Every country or every community, every sort of group of people around the world project on film, and film is the way in which you communicate culture and values and history and creativity. So just imagine that moving to the Metaverse. So no more going to theaters. But I was asking myself the question, what's the last film theater I've gone to in the last 5 years? And actually, we don't, do we? We watch Netflix, and then, of course, there was COVID, so the theaters shut down. So this idea of going to watch a film with your friends or with your partner and doing that on a regular basis is no longer there, right? So the transformation, so the next step of saying the entire film will be on the Metaverse and you can take part in it. So instead of watching a rock concert in a film, you are actually in that rock concert, in that film, in real time with your friends. Just imagine what that can do. And that's just one genre, right? There's so many other things, like other entertainment aspects, work aspects, legal aspects, industrial aspects, healthcare aspects. So many things that you don't actually need to do with a physical presence. We just do them because we don't have the technology and the means to do otherwise. And that's what the Metaverse is all about. It's about that change, but the change is so deep that after 10 years, I'm willing to bet that at a meeting like this will not happen. It will happen on the Metaverse, right? There will be a Metaverse on which this club is, and we will be all on there as members of that Metaverse, and we will engage. And we will have these sorts of meetings. So what are the implications for that for society? What are the implications for that for social bonding, for just knowing your fellow human beings? All of that is going to go through quite a change. So the internet changed many things radically, for good and for bad. The Metaverse is like hold your beer. And hold mine too, by the way. So with that, I'm going to bring this talk to an end, and then I'm happy to take your questions, comments, and whatever else you want to do. Thank you. So I'll just take a picture, everybody. Hello, Bali. Great. Super. Have we finished on time?
So now I think we can get some questions, and somebody there are some people who can do like few minutes pitches, and you can give feedback after the thing. So someone, Jacques, he says, I'm in Tropical Nomad and I'm also in Metaverse, so maybe we want to start with Kiss Kiss. There you go. Oh, yeah. We have another microphone to give the questions, right? Meanwhile, thank you so much, Tropical Nomads, for being S21 technical partners and setting this amazing setup, and the all equipment, IU for helping us setting this setup, basically, and Ichi. Is it mine?
Hello, hi. Nice to meet you here in the Metaverse also. I really like the topics about the Metaverse because it's just the beginning, in fact. Just the beginning that our life will be extending. We are here, we can be somewhere else. And what I like to know that everything is possible in the Metaverse. So we really like to be in Bali, but also we can invite our friend to join us in Bali virtually. Yeah. And also what I believe the future of Metaverse is geolocation, meaning I'm not really fan of the sandbox of all these big players now because they are not geolocated. I believe the future of Metaverse should be geolocated. So if we are in Bali, we have another layer of Metaverse, the Bali Metaverse. If we are in New York, we have another layer of Metaverse, is New York. So I believe the future of this Metaverse industry will be geolocated. So we can generate more interaction. Because we have people who are not virtually with us, but people who are not real with us, but nearby. I believe the effect of to be nearby have a different possibility in the future with the Metaverse. We can meet people virtually, and 10 minutes after meet them in real. I think is a better interaction that if we are on Decentraland, maybe we never can meet in real, you know.
So, oui, c'est vrai. C'est parfait en fait. And what we have there is that you're going to have both the models. So there will be the model of physical as well as virtual, which is the model that I believe in as well. And I think that is a very much more powerful model than purely virtual. But I think this also represents a generation gap in the sense that the coming generations, the physical part has no added value or attraction for them. They would much rather not meet physically. And so in COVID, a lot of them actually adapted quite well because for them, the physical interaction wasn't so important so long as you could interact to a number of different areas. So metaverses will cater to that. And yeah, there will be the New York metaverse and there'll be the Bali metaverse, etc. So I think we're going to have that sort of Cambrian explosion of metaverses all over the world. So totally with you on that. So geolocation is important. So if I look at it from Neom, in Neom, for example, that's a key idea that you can be anywhere in the world, but you could be a part of Neom. And that's very exciting, right? So yeah. Yes, please.
Cool.
That's all right, I can speak loudly.
Oh, all
right, so first of all, we are building a proto-metaverse.
Okay.
Right, okay, and it hasn't been built in 2 months. All right, so it's a very specifically designed for the enterprise level learning and development industry.
Sure.
So we have thought leaders like Marshall Goldsmith, John Battone, and various other reasonably well-known people that are involved. But again, like you said, community is a key factor. And we would love to get some kind of insights on how to, because we're starting. I mean, we actually are using Epic's Unreal Engine 5 because of with bit streaming. We would love to get some insights on how to build that specific to invite ideas, suggestions.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. So first of all, I think if you don't mind standing up and introducing your company and yourself.
Hi, I am Arthur Carmazzi. My normal job is I'm a best-selling author and currently ranked as the world's #1 thought leader in organizational culture. But today, I am the proud founder of the Global Mentors Exchange, proto-metaverse for learning and development.
Great. Big round of applause for it. So that's your first Bali Metaverse pitch in history. We'll see how that goes. So in terms of learning and development, especially enterprise learning and development, obviously, I have to discuss in detail, but I'll give you 2 or 3 key insights. Number one, and the first and most important one, is enterprises will have their own metaverses, especially the larger enterprises. And they're building that. Some of them are building that. Some of them are working with companies like Intel and IBM and Microsoft to actually build it. And it'll be built on their existing internet or intranets and existing communication tools. So Teams, for example, the reason why Microsoft released Teams up front is because their metaverse stack actually integrates with Teams. So a lot of the deployment that will happen on the metaverse side will happen internally in these companies. So the first insight I can give you there is that you need to be talking to the main companies who are building and running today's communication and learning platforms within their enterprises, because they will continue to dominate the infrastructure on which you have to run. The second thing is that, of course, Apple once again today said, you've got to come back to work 3 days a week. But I don't know, do what? Look at Tim's face all day? I don't know what you would do in the office. But effectively, work from home, like it or not, is going to become normal, right? And so enterprise learning and development then takes a whole different mindset, because, you're going to meet in a virtual classroom, which is also your virtual workspace. And if you look at what Horizon is doing, that was one of the first things that Zuckerberg demonstrated, a virtual classroom workspace within an organization. So that's another area to look at. How do you enable virtual workspaces and then add the cultural aspect to that? Because the cultural aspect is missing today, right?
One of the key elements that we're working with is simulations
Yeah.
in relationship to real-world application. And of course, the gamification element is essential, because otherwise it's not interesting or fun or engaging.
Yeah, so simulations are important. Simulations are already being used, so there's a sort of familiarity with that. I think what companies and what organizations are looking for at the moment is really role-driven engagement. So let's say today you are you're a senior developer or something, or a senior business manager. Tomorrow you become a senior trainer. That's a role that you then have to engage, and then you follow a simulated path around how it can happen. What's coming next is that will be done by AI. So you will have a profile, and the training course is actually a program, it's an algorithm that your profile will deliver. So the integrations with AI will become super important. And today actually Cointelegraph, I mean, I like them a lot, but today they came up with a good article on how AI will drive the metaverse. So anybody who's building, and you are obviously in that space,
We are building that. Actually, we have an AI.
Yeah.
Currently, it's modeled after me, and it's read all of my
Yeah.
notes and so on. But the element that we were discussing in that particular case is the fact that the AI can also connect real potential solutions, because oftentimes clients don't know, they think they want something, but when the AI interacts, the AI will be able to completely design a more real solution for them rather than just what they think they want.
And I think that's the model, that's the road to go down. So that you're on the right path there. The criticality again would come down to what kind of structure does the company want to have. And this is a number one issue with all learning development programs, is that a company wants to have a certain structure, but of course that's unappealing for the workforce, and so people drop out. A majority of people drop out of these learning programs unless it becomes mandatory. So for example, GE, you have to mandatorily pass certain internal exams, otherwise you don't keep your role or you don't get promoted, etc. That's a coercive model. And then Google has the incentivized model. You learn, and then you get a certain score, and then it'll give you a role that fits that particular learning. So these are things that are being developed today. Apart from the insights, the recommendation I would do is talk to those enterprise learning companies today that are already deployed, because no one will want to build this from scratch.
Yeah. Right,
Thank you. You're welcome. Next, Melissa. Hi. So please introduce yourself, your company, if you're doing a pitch. If you're asking me a question,
I'm actually asking a question. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you. And it's a pleasure to be here. Really, it's wonderful to have like all this crypto community in Bali. It's really, really wonderful. Thank you very much for your speech. My name's Paul Henry. I'm from Paris. I'm a full-stack Web2, Web3 developer and consultant. So I'm really deep into all the crypto and blockchain technology, and I'm really enthusiastic and I'm really passionate about it, right? And the thing is with Metaverse, what I feel is that the main bottleneck is not technical or is not conceptual, because we understand what a metaverse is. We understand the value that it can bring to the people. And what we could do everything that we want. And this is wonderful. To be able to be who we want to be. If we want to be a footballer, we can be a footballer. We want to be a fighter, we can be a fighter. We can be what we want in a virtual world. And this, in my opinion, is really the future. But the thing is, the main bottleneck of a metaverse is technical today. Is like physical. Is that if we don't have like AR, VR, XR headsets that enable us to go inside these metaverse and really interact with it, like, I don't know, full suits and being able to run or to move and to interact physically, in my opinion, there is hardly any value in a metaverse. If you take Decentraland, if you take the Sandbox, it's boring. There's nothing to do. There's no value added in these projects, even if they are billion-dollar projects, multi-billion-dollar projects. You know what you can do with multi-billions in the real world? You can buy like yachts and everything that you want. Everything that you want. But here, they took multi-billion dollars and did absolutely nothing value-adding, right? But it's normal. It's the start. We're starting. But we really need to be able to get this technology, these headsets and all these equipment that will enable us to go inside this world and really interact, right? And in your opinion, so this is my question, in your opinion, when will we be able to get this technology? And will it be available to everybody? Because today a VR headset is multiple thousand euros if you want a good one, right? So is it going to be available to everybody and to the consumers, so everybody will be able to one day go and interact in these worlds? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. Sorry, we didn't get your name. Paul. So thank you for your, merci pour votre question. There are two answers here. The short answer is that if you're looking for when are we going to have mass adoption of the metaverse, that's 2024, 2025. And it'll start slowly, like it did with the internet, right? So mass adoption is a few years away. And I think Zuckerberg has been very, very clear about that. Nobody listens to him, but he says it very clearly that this is not happening tomorrow. Which is why, as I say, always when somebody's talking about the metaverse and building, keep in mind that the roadmap for mass adoption is years away. Number one, years away, 24, 25 months away. The second thing is that I think the more fundamental question of how will you access the metaverse, right? And so there's going to be a multi-layered approach in the sense that you will be able to have different entry points in the metaverse. The whole point of a metaverse is that it's not just immersive, it's that you can do everything else and be fully immersed, right? So there will be an entry point where you can enter the metaverse through your phone, as simple as your phone or whatever touchscreen you have. Of course, that will not be a fully immersive experience. You will be able to have some amount of AR, so like with Pokemon Go, that was just using a phone, right? You could just walk around with your phone and be in augmented reality with objects and things around you. And then if you interacted and touched a piece of air somewhere, that would translate into a reward which you can actually buy a coffee with, for example. So that model has been tested. It went very well. That's one of the things why the reason the metaverse took off. So you're going to have that basic level of being able to interact with the metaverse with whatever tools you have today, the laptop, the phone thing. The next level will be the eye. Why the eye? Because, of course, we see and we perceive, and the brain takes that. And there are, to my knowledge, the number of people who pitched to me, about 20 companies that are racing to build these glasses that will come with all the technology. You will need nothing else. They will project into your cornea. So there will be mini projectors over here. They project into your cornea, and you will walk around, and you will be able to have that multiple vision. Like today, if you drive a Mercedes Benz or even a Audi A6 or something, you have that ability to see the what they call the overhead display, but see through it. It has become transparent. In the past, the overhead display was a block, and so you had to adjust it. Now you can see through the overhead display. It'll tell you that here's your street, and you need to turn left, but it'll also tell you where the red light is, and it'll combine real imagery that the car is picking up, the camera is picking up, with other data saying, hey, actually, rather turn right than turn left because you're going to have traffic on the other side. So that stuff is happening. That technology is being built, and out of the 120 billion, I don't know how many billions have gone into that, but definitely there are companies around the planet that are racing to build those perfect metaverse glasses, right? The next level will be a projection through other, taking into other senses. So that's a few years away. So you will be able to touch. There are companies out there today that are working with this touch interface that you can actually feel a ball. So your avatar picks up a ball and you will have a glove with which you're going to feel that. And it's not that hard to imagine. You have force feedback joysticks for 20 years now, right? So convert that joystick into a glove, that's going to happen. The full body suit, that's my favorite example. So the full body suit is actually very much in use. It's just not in the civilian population. In filmmaking, it's all for Avatar, which was made, I don't know, 10 years ago now. They never, they were just all full body suits with green, and a green screen behind and dots. And all their movements were done and everything else was generated. So the question is, how do you move the full body suit into civilian use? And whether we need a full body suit at all, I don't think we will need it. I think we'll probably have a glove, some sort of an eye visor, and something at somewhere in your pocket or in your back that'll capture your movements. And that's all you need to do. Capture how you walk. That can be done by you don't have to have a full body suit for that, right? And how you see and how you experience, and then the touch side. And that's it. And you've got there. So how do these two trends combine? Looking at where some of these companies are, some of them are far ahead, some of them are still developing. I would again say 2024, 2025 is when this comes together. So you're going to have these initial issues of, hey, it's immersive, but I can't immerse unless I wear a headset. I can't wear a headset for more than 2 hours. So this is limiting. You're going to have that. You're going to have people saying, hey, this is too complicated. And ultimately, you'll get to the point where it becomes very easy to do that. Remember, at one point, we had only 24 songs on a stick that we could carry. That was a revolution. My God, you can have a stick with 24 songs? You don't need a cassette anymore? I mean, some people here probably don't even know what a cassette is, right? And what it takes to get a cassette working, right? So that's where we started from. A cassette in a piece of machinery connected to your ears, and now you have a phone and it can actually wirelessly transmit whatever it happens. So we'll get there. The question is how fast and who's going to win that race. My prediction is 2024, 2025 is when we'll start to see that happen. And who'll win that race, I can't tell you, but there are some companies out there that are really very far advanced in terms of some of these technologies. Okay, Mercy Paul. Right. I was hoping you'd ask me a question because I have a question for you.
Yeah, definitely. Hey everyone, I'm Cosmo. Most of you know me. So yeah, it's not about me, it's mostly about you and maybe about my generation. So you had a great speech, like I understood everything that you said, and I'm actually glad that you enforced some of my points that like I've been thinking about, but nobody was able to agree with them because nobody is at the knowledge above above mine. So basically, thank you for coming and for sharing the slide. So before I go into my actual question, I want to make an analogy. So personally, I grew up back in Romania, and I didn't have a phone until until I was in middle school, and not a smartphone until I got to high school. So I got actually to walk outside and play outside, and break my arm and stuff like that. I went outside as a kid. And when I started having a phone, I discovered social media, I got online, at first even it was on a computer on social media before it went into the phone, right? And then you had friends and you had friends in real life and you were able to talk to them when you weren't close to them. And then, things evolved to where you got to meet people online and then you talked to them online and then you went to meet with them. And here we are, But I look at my brother, and he is like 15 years old now. He's always grown with a phone. He always had a phone in his hand. He doesn't have real life friends. Like now is summer vacation, he has 0 friends. He has built a simulator where he plays like Microsoft Flight Simulator or something on like 3 screens next to him, and he spends like 8 hours into that, and it's not interactive. I mean, it's with nobody else. He builds stuff, he like does stuff, and there's a lot of kids out there playing Minecraft. Like the point that I'm trying to get is that, you know, people here most of them are, I mean, maybe not all of them, but you know, like they're above my age. When people think about this, they're like above my age. But this metaverse that is being built now, that's probably going to be available in like, I don't know, 10 years maybe, like fully available, it's not built for us. It's built for the next generation. I think a lot of the points that, and a lot of the questions that people maybe, you know, are thinking today is like, how can I use this? The point is, this is not for me. The point is for that kid. Like I know 14-year-olds that made millions of dollars from flipping NFTs with no, I mean, you know, like with no logic. Like they just did it because to them it's all play money. All their friends are online. They don't have real life friends. Like for them, you're building something where they can go and experience that. So my question to you is like, how do people from the actual industry that are actually building think about who are these building it for and who they're not building it for? Like, do we just cut out the 50-plus-year-olds? Like they're never gonna understand it, or how is it?
Excellent question, Cosmo. And I think, so this is the part where you've got to have this basic dichotomy, is that a lot of the people who are building the technologies to build metaverses have grown up like you and me playing outside, right? And didn't have a phone till they were at least 12 or 13, or till their parents gave them a phone. And of course, summers were spent outside, not playing a Microsoft Simulator. And these are the people who are building this metaverse technologies, right? And so the question I think is very relevant, is that these companies need to understand, just like we have to understand, this is not for us. We can choose to be a part of it or not. Nobody cares. Okay? TikTok is not built for you, and Facebook Reels is not built for you either. It's built for the next generation who spend 8 hours perfectly happy in one room, fully online, and they could not care less about anything else. And of course, for a lot of us, this is alien. Like, how is that possible? How is this thing? We want to travel. They don't want to travel. They have no plans of getting on a plane. They don't have a driving license, and they don't have no plans of getting a driving license. Remember, 20 years ago, if you didn't have jobs would be advertised with must have a non-expired or non-whatever driving license. Imagine that. Just open a newspaper job and look at a job ad from like 10 years ago, right? So the world is moving very, very fast, and the metaverse is meant for what's coming, not for what's there today. So how do they do that? By engaging with these groups and understanding these trends. And so, again, I can't tell you the name of the company, but some of the biggest companies now are hoping for one of two things. Number one, the existing community of gamers, which is always a younger generation and always a rapidly changing community. As a lot of gamers come online, and they're mostly younger people, will be able to provide them with the insights to build the metaverse for them. That I think, I mean, Paul must be seeing that in France. All developers see that. The gamer is seen as the ideal metaverse profile today, right? Number one. Number two is that now companies saying, you're right, we need to go out and engage with young people in their language, in their activities, and figure out what they want. And so that industry hasn't been built yet. The user insights for the metaverse. What does the metaverse user want? If you think back 20 years to the start of the internet, at the very beginning, it was all about eyeballs. How many eyeballs on a page? And there was this guy, I don't know if you remember his name, I don't remember him. He had a page called Pixel Advertising. And he had a pixel, and you could buy a pixel for $10,000, and he sold the whole page for $1 million to a company that would have pixels, because it was like, oh, if you have 10 pixels, that's 10, whatever number of eyeballs in one pixel into 10. So if you have a larger space flashing your advertisement online, then more people are seeing that, and more people are seeing that, that's more revenue. And then, of course, the first internet companies crashed because that was a nonsense model, and they figured out it's not the amount of people who see what's online, it's the amount of people who spend time on your website. And so it became, what's the average user time? If they're spending less than 30 seconds and you have a million of them, you're going to make no money. If they are spending 3 minutes or more, then there's a good likelihood that they have gone through certain content or certain steps and clicked on certain things, and you're more likely to make money. So 10,000 people spending 3 minutes or more is much more valuable than 100,000 people spending 130 seconds or less, right? And so the same thing with the metaverse. I don't believe we have any understanding of the metrics of the metaverse today. We're just building the technology. A lot of these companies are going to crash and crash badly. A lot of money is going to get burnt because we have no idea really about who we are building for. And neither do they, because they haven't seen that. Once they start interacting in a metaverse world, they're going to start generating their own metrics and their own trends. So this is going to be a learning process and a painful learning process. So that was, I hope that answered your question. Then it's my turn to ask you a question. Where did you get that? That's the Movember movement, right? No? Okay.
It was never. I mean, I grew it because I was fiddling with my mustache once way back in the day. It looked like this great poet that I had, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I should grow it. So I grew it, and now it's here. And today I dyed it blue because Melissa encouraged me to not dye my whole hair blue, just my mustache.
Oh, good job, Melissa. But, I think you should make an NFT of that, and I personally will buy it. Please, Emilio.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for being here. It's an amazing start of Bali Crypto Week. My name is Emilio, and I work for the Internet Computer Protocol, ICP. I'm kind of in charge of the blockchain marketing, an office called Special Projects, but it's basically the marketing, yeah. And I have a question. How much of it do you see happening on-chain, and how much of it do you see happening off-chain? Because we have a few problems there. The cost, specifically gas fee, the access, whatever, the wallets, a lot of things that kids might want or not want to face. So what's your point of view of Web 2 versus Web 3 when it comes to Metaverse, when it comes to social media on Metaverse and on-chain, when it comes to creator economy on-chain? Because before you were rightfully saying we need to get out of, I hope my bosses are not listening, we need to get out from the US, we need to get out from Europe. Yes, we need to go to Philippines, Indonesia, Brazil, India in the first place, Nigeria, whatever. But these people, they do not have $100 to pay for gas fees to sell probably a virtual hat that's cost $1 or $2. So what's your point of view?
Hello. Yeah, hi. No, absolutely. Great question, Emilio. By the way, I have some ICP coins, so, I'm in the game with you guys. So let's sort of split that into, maybe break it down into two parts. So the first part is about how do you manage the gas fee problem? And I think the gas fee problem is a specific problem that is due to the way the infrastructure is designed. So I don't agree with Musk on a lot of things, but I agree with him on this, is that when blockchain was designed, fundamentally, nobody thought about the idea of what will it cost, the compute cost of actually doing a transaction. And today it's an issue because, yeah, if you want to do a $1, $2, even a coffee in a Starbucks, you're going to pay $15 to Vitalik for that, right? So there's no reason to do that, although I like Vitalik. So that has to be solved, and the way that's going to be solved is the blockchain 2 infrastructure, which is going to it's going to split that into modules. So you're not going, right now you're paying for the entire chain compute. You're going to pay for only the module. So that's going to radically cut the cost, but that means fundamentally changing the compute mechanism, because right now you just deploy that on one virtual machine and you pay for the cost of the entire virtual machine, whether it's one transaction, 100 transactions. But if you have if you're paying for the cost of one thread execution in one virtual machine, then you're not paying for the entire virtual machine because you're not booking the entire virtual machine. So that's another layer of indirection that has to be built. I know that VMware are working on it. A number of guys are working on that. But so that has to happen. But again, it's going to take a few years because, of course, the current infrastructure is widely deployed, right? So you have to deploy new packages and all the rest of that. So I think that, though, will be solvable. The second question is, what are the business models? So this is very interesting. So when the mobile phone came out, and I'm sure all of us here are old enough to remember that, except a few people. When the mobile phone first came out, this was the exact same question. Who on earth is going to spend $13, so that's what it cost at that time, to make a 1-minute phone call? It's only for the CEOs, and executives in companies, or people in emergency scenarios, etc. Right? And that radically dropped, and the phone factor changed. But when we came to 2010, companies were looking for new markets, right? And then the same question came up. Okay, you might have consumers in Europe and the US willing to spend 50 to 60 pounds a month for a phone subscription, or even 30 pounds a month. It's now 30 pounds a month for a phone subscription to buy data. 30 pounds a month is a lot of money in Nigeria. It's a lot of money in Kenya. It's a lot of money in Philippines, right? I mean, so do you actually expect a consumer to do that? Now, if you go to the phone companies in these countries, they don't have those costs. And you know why? Because there's no legacy infrastructure. There was the cost of setting up the masks and the masts and running them was 1/3 the cost of setting it up in Europe or in the US, because here you have to get a land permit, you have to identify a location, sometimes you have to pay rent to the owner of the building before you can get a mast on top. And then there are people who get up at 12 o'clock at night and burn your mast because 5G is causing I don't know what, right? So you don't have to deal with all of that in many parts of the world. Like there's a mast just outside the hotel where I'm staying. So the cost of deployment is much lower, and the cost of maintenance is much lower because, of course, salaries are much lower. So I don't believe that there will be uniform pricing. I believe that pricing will be different. And one of the reasons why, for example, mobile banking took such a long time in Western Europe and in the Western world to take off is because the costs were high. If you go to Nigeria and Kenya, most people pay with their phones. They don't carry credit cards. They don't go and pay through the banking application. They have a phone. And if tomorrow you took their phone away, they wouldn't know how to pay. Just like some of us, they wouldn't know how to open a cassette, and they wouldn't know how to make a payment. Because that's all they know. The phone is the bank. So I believe that when it comes to this, initially it will be mostly on-chain and obviously focused on more mature markets, because you need to prove the audience, you need to give your VCs money back, you need to show those amazing KPIs that we all have to do. But very soon we are going to move to this really decentralization where you're going to have off-chain models, and you're going to have different types of chains. You're going to have level 1, level 2, level 3 chains. All chains don't need the same level of features. I mean, if you're just making a single transaction in a certain area, why do you need those 7 layers of protocol? I don't think so, right? So that, I think, is where we're going to have this. So fragmentation and differentiation are the two key words, and that is where a lot of money is there to be made. If you back the right startups and the right ideas, what you're backing in Philippines and in Indonesia and in South Africa, although it's a different market, in Kenya, would be completely different from what you would back in Western Europe. And if you understand that, you're going to do well.
Another time.
Time for drinks?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. I thought I earned a beer already.
So just a follow-up, because it came to somewhere where, like, is to anyone we are really so interested in. So technically, what do you think about the opportunities of the blockchain innovative side and the technologies that are available that's going to matter for specifically on Metaverse, basically? So we have so many issues, like, for instance, one, and Vitalik was referring to that, the concept from World of Warcraft, basically, soulbound NFTs. And there we also have a unique identity problem when we are talking about this whole global metaverse generally. So how to build like civil resistant systems, which is a question that is not answered yet, but which technologies and which applications already you see that it's going to be important for the growth and technological innovation that's going to make Metaverse more effective the next 5-10 years?
No, it's a great question, and that's the question I asked when I was setting up my Metaverse Technologies Fund. So, the answer to that question is basically how you structure a fund that would fund Metaverse technologies. But the first thing is that we've got to differentiate between three layers. Any metaverse or any actual experience platform, the metaverse is an experience platform at the end of the day, has three levels. So there is the basic infrastructure, the commodity infrastructure, the data centers, which will be running the bare bones metal data set all over the world, right? And the technologies there are, the primary technologies there that need changing is storage, access, and the virtualization, but specifically this idea of having hyper virtualization, that instead of virtualizing a machine, you virtualize a thread of compute. So companies that are working on that, goldmine, because those companies, some of them will solve it, and those are the ones that are just going to change. And these are the harder ones to find because these are highly technical. They come from very deep technical pockets around the world. But there are professors and academics who are working on solving this cost of transaction. And the cost of transaction equation, which is it's not linear, it's a logarithmic equation. Cost of transaction can go radically high for very small changes in the input values. It's a logarithmic equation. So to crack that, and if you can come up with simple equations of how to solve that, companies that are working on that, that's going to, they're going to take 5 to 6 years to solve that. But that's definitely an area to focus on. That's on the commodity side. That's what's going to affect the gas fees, but also the ability for anybody to set up something and run it. And say, hey, I have a metaverse server for rent. So if you look at storage for now, your Filecoin is one example. I mean, I know them well, so I'm giving them that example. But Filecoin have that, right? You can set up a Filecoin server and get on the network, and they will give you jobs, right? It's a bit like the Uber model. You get a server, register yourself on Filecoin, obviously install the software, maintain certain standards, and they will give you jobs to store. So that's an example of where we need to go to. So commodity and the technology is not there today because it's logarithmic. It's always harder to solve NP versus P. So that's an issue. The second layer, which I think is also going to be a lot of startups in that space, is this idea of how do you solve the latency. So in the Citigroup side as well, and you guys know, latency is a key issue, right? If you're chatting, it's one thing, but if you're talking and that's real-time transmission, just the encoding of that just the encoding on the client side is very hard to do in terms of latency. You can either have quality or you can have speed. Having the two together in real time like you have in Zoom, yeah, Zoom works. Get 100 people on a Zoom and see how that works. And a typical metaverse platform will have thousands of people with random interactions. So the same algorithm that works for Zoom will not work over there, right? And then you have to be device independent. So again, a lot of companies are working. Google actually has a lab where I don't know if you guys saw that the Google video transmission where there's this person sitting in front of a screen interacting with their aunt, and they were almost like in the same room. And so they had cracked that problem for that one model. Imagine scaling that. So again, companies that are working on video streaming, audio streaming for metaverses are going to be very good. The third comes, and that's where I think is so exciting, is the experience side. Remember, all of this is technology. At the end of the day, it's that gamification, as I think Paul said very clearly, it's boring to be on decentralized. What do you do after a few hours, right? So somebody has to create the content, and lots of content, interactive content, interesting content. I need to want to get out and go there because it's not a question of going out or staying in. It's a question of when I stay in, I have Microsoft Simulator, I have hundreds of other games, I have OnlyFans, I have whatever, right? So why do I go to your metaverse? You don't have OnlyFans? Try that. It's good. It's a good model. When Bitcoin goes down, go back, try that model. But so again, I think over there, the content creators, the storytellers, they're going to have a new life. And that's why I focused on film making. A lot of people in the film world are not thinking about metaverses right now because, okay, it's a VR headset, etc. They're looking at the current metaverse. You look at the future, you can sit at home and create fantastic content and make millions as a young person by releasing that content on the metaverse. And that's the real metaverse economy when, anybody can come up with an idea and deploy that on a metaverse because the technology is there to enable that. So these are, I think, the three categories. And there are plenty of problems to solve. So I'm very excited about this because it's like 20 years back in the internet when we said, oh, now we can publish pictures. Yeah, but and somebody said, oh, what else can you do on the internet now? Yeah. So now we know what you can do with the internet. Same thing with the metaverse. 20 years from now, you will look back and say, oh my God, we had no idea what we unleashed. So we have two questions. Gentlemen there. No, go for it.
Thanks. Hi everyone, my name is Stan. I'm CEO founder of Passenger, and we try to democratize how people influence the creators and influencers, requesting their content together just to manage what you will see tomorrow. Today we just consume content, but with Passenger you can request content together, like crowdfunding. So my question is, hi Melissa. 2 days ago I was coming back from Korea Blockchain Week, and in plane I watched the last Matrix. Who watched the last Matrix? Nobody fans, right? I mean, I can see that's here mostly people from Generation Y, which I also in. And I thought that actually Metaverse is in the high state of development, right? Like you say, in 20 years. It can be Matrix. So it's really, you can do not see difference between reality and the Metaverse. And we go in there. But my question is, you also mentioned like 20 years ago when the internet was begin, actually maybe 40 years ago already, people was crazy and they think, oh, it will change everything. Social structure will renew. We can do whatever we can. We can do electronic democracy. We can do whatever. Today it seems like we can do everything in internet, right? I mean, you can create a website. You can create a startup. I have a startup, so we raise the fund. But still, you implicate it in this vertical, centralized structure with the funds, with the venture funds, connected with the LP connected with the governmental funds, etc. So my question is, the internet, where you basically can do everything, but to become a popular, you need to connect with the funds, with the old system, old money. How we can prevent in the metaverses the same situation when we now thinking about, oh, it can be like a 3D games with everything, instead of thinking how we can build the new rules in the metaverse to not create the new layer of the internet, just 3D layer, where corporations will have everything and basically algorithms will control what we see, what we can do, what we cannot do. They can cancel people, cancel cultures, etc. So how we can prevent, I don't know, maybe you know some projects to create like a DAO where people can build one metaverse. Because if we will not do this, I think, we will have few or maybe one metaverse controlled by corporations. Because it took a lot of money, like you say, billions, to create nice graphics. We need perfect servers. We need a lot of stuff. So how we can build the new rules in this new world? Do not just creating the new 3D layer with the AliExpress and the stuff like that inside. So that's the question.
Hello. Yeah. So first of all, I also came back from Korea Blockchain Week 2 days ago. And no, I didn't watch The Last Matrix on the flight. I watched The Contractor, which I would definitely recommend. And I also watched a Nicolas Cage movie because I wanted to laugh my head off. So the new Nicolas Cage movie, I watched that as well. But to answer your question, I think... so what's happening in the... So again, there are two answers. The first part in terms of what's happening in the world of funding. So there is actually a radical change that's taking place in the world of funding, is that the LPs are becoming the VCs. In other words, family offices are now trying to invest directly. This is a fundamental change. Family offices have always had the principle that, hey, our family made money doing whatever, wherever. Now it's about conservation, preservation, and then growth. So we'll focus on conservation and preservation. For the growth part, which was less than 20% of the funds, we're going to give it to these very well-dressed Harvard and and Princeton graduates who are going to deploy it on our behalf. That's exactly why women don't get funded, and there's lack of that, because it's very, very demographically as well as from a class structure is very in turn, right? The fund managers usually come from 5 or 6 major universities in the US, especially, and in Europe as well. We've got the Grand Écoles in France. In Belgium we have nothing, but okay. And in the UK we've got again the Russell universities, and same thing in Switzerland. ETH and the other one. So you've always got these sort of spaces where the rich people's progeny go, and then they become fund managers, and you trust them because they're also members of family funds, etc. And so the model has been the VCs take the risk, and if they burn, they burn, and if they do well, we get our money back, and we can wait 10 years because that's only 20% of the entire family's fund. What's happening now is that the next generation is coming into play. And because of the internet, and because we have now in a different world, the next generation, the 20, 30-year-olds who are inheriting these family funds, are like, wait a minute. I am not going to live, or I don't care about living 100 years, and my children, I may not even have children, and all the rest of all that stuff, right? And there's a huge amount of money sitting here doing what? And I'm sorry, I don't trust the VCs. I mean, the VCs, who are these guys? Right? And they've made huge mistakes. So don't tell me that they know what they're doing. So I want to invest my family's money directly. So this is known as the Nexus movement, the next generation movement. It's very big in the US, and it's also happening in Europe. Is that a younger generation of fund owners are wanting to be more actively involved. And so family offices today, if you go into the family office space, you'll see they are now talking about direct investments, which is great for the metaverse, right? Because you're going to have a movement away. So the same old VC metric of an 18-month runway and this and that, get the founder out because the founder is the problem, install a board that can all control the founder through the board and all that stuff is now moving out because family offices are saying, I'm going to invest double of what I was doing into new technologies and new companies, and I want to do that, and I want to do impact. So impact and dematerialization, out of which Metaverse is the main thing, are the two areas where funds are focusing on, and so we are going to see a change. For the second question around, okay, how do you prevent the same old people from dominating? I think here I'm much more hopeful than you because of the fact that if you look at the top 10 metaverses today in development, so of course Facebook is number 1, Fortnite is number 2, Sandbox is number 3. Number 4, 5, and 6 are all companies, all countries. They're sovereign. So there's Hong Kong, there's Korea, Neom, Saudi Arabia, and Singapore currently. And now there's one in the US called Telosa, but that's also controlled by a billionaire, by the way. So countries are going to get in the metaverse space, which means that if the country is democratically running, then the metaverse space will be democratically run. Right? So it's not far off to think about citizens' communities or committees, like the S21 committee. There will be a citizens' committee running the metaverse of the region and deciding what happens or doesn't happen and making it sure that there is access. So I think this is a fundamental change from Web 2.0 in terms of the social structure. Web 2.0, an individual could create a website and be on the internet. In the metaverse world, an individual is going to find it very hard to create a metaverse, but a group of individuals organized, whether it's a DAO or as a community, as a municipality, as a commune, as a country, will be able to create or deploy a metaverse. There will be companies that will provide white box metaverses that you can set up, let's say, whiteboxmetaverse.bali.com or bali.whiteboxmetaverse.com, right? And then you build your metaverse on that, which is what Sandbox is trying to do. So there's some work to be done, but they're trying to do that. So I think from both sides, it's a matter of hope. But of course, as we know from history has taught us, is that hope can be dashed. So it's up to all of us to get engaged and to make sure that it's not just the same group of people doing the same things over and over again. We need to get involved. More women need to be involved. I think that is a fundamental change that we need to see. More women being involved at leadership positions in these things and pushing for change. I think let's give it to that guy first because he hasn't had a question yet.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Paul. He had a question. So
it was just because I wanted to try to add something to your argument.
Please.
So it's not a question. I'll give it to you just after. It was like, what Stan asked is a very major question. Is that, are we going to replicate what we have seen and what we have done in our world in the metaverse? Like, are the VCs, are the big companies, are the richest people going to control the world in the metaverse like they are doing nowadays? And the thing is, the metaverse is a wonderful place where we'll be able to be really free and do what we want, just like crypto. we're free. We can have self-custody of our coins, of our assets, and we are able to freely do what we want. But let's not be naive, people. We are going to be fucked. Yes, we are. Like, just as in our society today, it is going to be the same. Not because they are bad people or not because it's Big Brother or anything. It's because we need to understand that the social structures are absolutely natural. In any environment, if you take any kingdom, we have a pyramidal social structures. If you take like the food chain or any chain, even without the human beings, even the plants, even the ants, you have like a small fish and you have a tiger and the tiger will eat the fish and something will eat the tiger, and it's normal. You always have someone that is over you. And this will be the same thing. And the metaverse, even if we don't want it, there will be people with more money than you. The builders of the metaverse will be people, enormous VC firms with billions of dollars. There will be like the Facebooks. There will be the creators of with billions of dollars, and it's normal. But what we need to know is that this Web3 revolution is bringing us, is enabling us the people, to now participate in this world. Now, we didn't have anywhere to say. Facebook created something and we just used it. We used it. Like a small rat, right? But now today, with this revolution, we will be able to participate and we have an edge. We have an edge. We have the possibility to add some value, to bring value in this new world. And this is the beauty of it. But don't be naive. It will be the same. They will still control it. But we will be able to add some value and we will be able to create a lot more than we are able to do today. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. And if there's a black van outside that picks you up, remember we never met.
Hi, you can hear me? Yeah, hi, I'm Adrian from Unit Ventures. I work on projects that combine impact with community and technology, including but not only Web3. My question is, what do you think are the social and political motivations of the powers that be creating your city and country metaverses? And I'm wondering if that's an opportunity for social experiments to be conducted, which would then potentially be linked to a social credit system and covertly, or not covertly, linked to access to the central digital currency for that city or state.
Yeah, so first of all, Adrian, I'm a unit networker. I'm part of the unit network, so I know Michael and Ip very well, and I think I did the closing conference for your last cohort. I spoke about that. So yeah, you guys are doing a great job, and obviously I'm a part of the unit network as well, so very happy that you're here. The social and political considerations, yes. The social considerations are straightforward, is that basically recreate online what you're doing offline. And do that, and by the way, and I'm sure everybody knows this. And again, as I think, who was that who spoke about that? Cosmo spoke about that. The younger generation, by the way, doesn't care about being tracked online. They couldn't care less. Right? I remember this thing from like almost 20 years ago now, when Wi-Fi was being developed. Our generation was very, oh my God, Wi-Fi has to be secure, and you mustn't see what's going across. And the younger generation was like, I don't care what you see or what I send across. Just make sure it works very fast, right? That's it. And the same thing here. So they don't care about being tracked online. But the point of moving society online is that everything is going to be tracked. Everything. What you spend, what you didn't spend, what you're planning to spend, whatever it is, right? So it makes a lot of sense from a Big Brother or whatever perspective to move society online, and the metaverse provides a very good platform to do that, right? So that's number one. The political considerations, now that's a hot topic, because that is, of course, different countries will have different. Democratic countries will focus on, moving that discourse online, because it's better. I mean, even for elections and all that, if you can track what people are saying and what the sentiment is, you can either adapt to that or you can play to that or whatever, and you can create positions, you can lobby for your positions. So today you're relying on people watching Facebook ads and you get some data, but if it's in the metaverse, you'll know specifically what this guy liked or this girl liked on this moment in this period and how that changed over time. So how did the same message play over time based on what's happening, what else is happening, right? So it's a dream for politicians and for the political system. So I think, and democratic countries will move on to that. For other mechanisms, I think you will obviously have social crisis. So in China, that's already a reality. And it's just a question of connecting that to their digital currency whenever that happens. But I think in general, you're going to have that. You're going to have this idea that how you behave, that digital conduct, your digital conduct will be either approved or rejected or incentivized or punished. One of the four things, right? It's going to happen. So as a technologist, as a technology futurist, my view on this is always the same. You can't fight any of this stuff. You can, of course, go and live as a hermit in a forest. You can do that anytime, right? Or you can go and live in certain places around the world where you can have an anonymous trust and all that. But for the vast majority of that, we can't fight it. So the question is, shape it. Get in now and shape it. Shape what you can do. And at least in Europe, we've had success with this. The new AI law says you cannot deploy AI to profile anybody in Europe, out of the question. It's only in the UK that the cameras can take face pictures. In Europe, it's not allowed. You cannot do that. And you may be able to do that for certain specific exceptions, but you cannot submit that as evidence in court. And you have to make sure whatever your AI does, it has this clause, do no harm, DNH. And I'm one of the research innovation experts of the European Commission, so I evaluate a lot of proposals. And this year was the first year in 10 years that the Commission told us all, hey, apart from the proposal, the technical value of it, please figure out, as an expert, if this has a do not harm implication. Will this proposal likely to harm somebody? Will this AI likely to harm somebody? If you think so, that proposal is struck off. So I think, at least in Europe, because of the democratic movement, we've actually managed to stop AI at the moment from the more harmful side. And it's I would think, a pilot that can be adopted for other platforms. But ultimately, it always comes down to that. If you don't care, somebody else is just going to take whatever they want. If you care enough about the world you live in, and you care enough about what you do, you're going to take part and shape it. I think we have a question there. We have Bruno here. Yeah, okay.
Hey, sorry, just a really quick one. So I'm part of the world of gaming.
Right.
And so, the metaverse is the logical extension of
Yeah.
everything we work with. One of the questions I have is around how you see the monetization inside the space, given that, especially when you look at Southeast Asia, over 98% of all players here don't actually spend. So as far as a game company goes, there's a massively diminishing return on the eCPMs. So when we look at this sort of revenue model, and we're talking about the cost of compute with metaverses being much greater than just people playing Valorant on their phones, especially because Valorant is all distributed compute, right? So when you're talking about this sort of volume and that the inability to extract payment from these sorts of individuals, how do we see this unfolding with the metaverse in terms of monetization?
Absolutely. I think the difference between the metaverse and the gaming world is that the metaverse has yet to hit. So the experience and the spending to have that experience has not happened. So that's going to happen. So the first few years is going to be very basic. I will pay a subscription fee to be a part of a metaverse, and then I'm going to buy things in that metaverse, just like you do today when you go to a park or something. You pay a entry fee, you get in, and then you go to different rides, and you pay for different rides. In a movie theater, you pay
so it's a game,
fee. Yeah.
right? So
it's an experience.
For the next few years, it's a game,
yeah,
right? For 2%.
No, well, it's not a game, but the gaming model of extraction of payments will work. But then what's going to happen is that you move to the partner model. So do you know, for example, how credit cards in the US make money today? They're not making money off you, although they can. They're making money of their partners. They're making money of the mileage points. Every time you scan, you get a point. Your credit card is making money from the companies that are, so if you have a Marriott branded card or American Airlines branded card, the credit card companies are making a lot of money out of American Airlines and out of the Marriott. Because why? They're providing them customers. So the end monetization is not actually happening through you. Of course, you're still paying your credit card fees and all the rest of it, but it's the partners that are paying to have a slice of you in their systems. And that's exactly what's going to happen in the metaverse. Everything will either be branded obliquely, explicitly, or implicitly. So somebody will pay for the fact that if you walk into a Gucci store, somebody's going to pay for that. Sorry. Yeah.
The argument again comes back to what we're saying is that it's going to be through advertising, right? So, but that's so the examples you've given. So with MasterCard and so on, and with American Express, actually a huge volume of revenue comes down the rails, right? So it's what they supply. So there's a fee on every single transaction that takes place. So as a result of that, that's where some of this revenue split goes back up the pipe. Now, when we're talking about what we're looking at with individuals, so the 98% throughout India, Indonesia, right, and the Philippines who do not spend. So these people do not buy anything on games. So where we're saying gaming has now become ubiquitous, it's now on, in this region alone, 1 billion phones, but out of that 1 billion people, 98% do not pay. So the monetization method currently is through sale of information, which will gradually be made illegal, followed by advertising.
Yes, but on top of that, the monetization is through customer acquisition. You are providing customers to your partner. That is the monetization. That is the model that is taking, because people are spending less, you are providing a customer, an access to a customer, to a partner, and that partner is paying for it. That's exactly where that comes from. So very simply, for every mileage point that you get, somebody is paying, and that somebody is usually the person who will ultimately benefit from you using the mileage point on their services. So that's the model that we're moving to. So it's basically a third-party monetization that's going to happen. But I have to stress again, in the metaverse world, none of the models have been stressed at the moment, because the only metaverses we have right now are the proto-metaverses of the gaming platforms. So you are going to spend money to experience a metaverse. That's absolutely going to happen. And you will have to spend less to experience a metaverse in Indonesia or in Philippines as you would do in Europe, but you will still spend. And that's definitely there. The other thing about which I wanted to say was that there is going to be community spending. So for example, today you pay taxes for something, right? Think about why countries and cities and communities are going online. There will be some sort of taxation. It's just different. A community will pay a community fee, like a service tax, service charge. And that will guarantee that on the metaverse is maintained and you can have your rights as a citizen, individual on that metaverse. Trust me, we haven't even scratched I wouldn't even say we've scratched the top of the cake or anything. We haven't scratched anything in the metaverse space when it comes to monetization. But crazy things will get monetized that you will think back, oh my God, I never even thought that could be a source of revenue or sales or whatever. Yeah? Best example of this, a Swiss guy, when COVID happened, a Swiss guy said, hey, Chinese customers, I'm going to go to the top of my mountain, which is 2 minutes from my house because I live on that mountain. I'm going to open a bottle, which is a bottle that I haven't bought. It's a bottle that I get after finishing the product. And I'm going to close the cap. I'm going to put in the mail. And you're going to pay for the mail charges, the bottle, and $120 on top because it's fresh Swiss mountain air. The guy has made multiple millions. So the only thing that limits us from making revenue or profiting is our imagination. Any other questions?
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure to hear you talking and everything that you shared. I hope that everybody, thank you so much for being here to our Kickstart Day of the Crypto Week. I'm Bruno. I am a crypto coach and I help people and business to approach the crypto world. So it's a pleasure for me to see all these passionate and enthusiasts to be here today. So my question is, it's something that I think I'm asking on behalf of everyone, because most of the people that are coming here to Bali are people that left the classic 9-to-5 job, and they are global nomads that came to this paradise island because of the energy, but especially because of the entrepreneurial mind that everybody has, because everybody coming here has an idea, wants to develop it, and there's a lot of people that can help them in doing this. So my question is, how this young entrepreneur, what they should anticipate for the metaverse, in which way they can create an entrepreneurial disruption for making sure that the metaverse will really happen. And this is something that is going to be really created by young mind like the one that we have here today. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Bruno, I mean, that's a great question. I just want to clarify. So, are you talking about an entrepreneur who's creating a metaverse or is working to create metaverse technologies? Is that what you're focusing on? Okay. So that's partially what I mentioned when Melissa asked the question about, what is it that you're going to look at? I think if you're looking at the disruption side, depending on what your appetite is, the three areas that need disruption. Number one
Silence
is
in the back, please.
Yes, thank you, Emilio. One of the main areas to disrupt is the intersection between quality and latency. So that's one thing to disrupt, because that we still don't have the answers there. Second thing to disrupt is cost of transaction. If you can find out, and there are various ways to manage that, if you can find out as an entrepreneur how to disrupt the cost of transaction. For example, you might be able to find a location somewhere on the planet where the cost of electricity is very cheap because it's coming from a water source right next to you. And if you can drop the price of electricity by 30 or 40%, you radically drop the gas fees. The main component of a gas fee is the cost of running the server, right? So that's another area. Cost of transaction, cost of transmission, which is quality versus latency. And the third one is if you're not looking at these are all optimizations, right? You optimize what's happening and you create value by optimizing. The third one is pure creation, is that I would focus on, I personally would, of course the technology side attracts me as a technologist, but I think for me what's very interesting is the business models. What can you do online? For example, esports. Esports and the metaverse will be absolutely, for those of us who are football mad or cricket mad or whatever mad, imagine being in the actual stadium next to your favorite star, right? Because his or her avatar signs your whatever virtual autograph. What would you pay for that? And how many hours a day would you want to do that? If you had a system that says if you spend 100 hours on the platform, you get an autograph from your favorite star, and it's an NFT, it's yours, right? Would you spend 100 hours? There are many people who would do that, right? So there's a lot of these new content and business models where I think you can unlock billions of dollars trillions of dollars of value. So Apple became the first $1 trillion company, and now there are others coming. I think MS is on the way. But I think we are nowhere near unlocking the kind of value that we can do, because we still have fundamental challenges: space, time, and effort. Yeah? If you have to come from Seoul to here, that's a good 12 hours in a flight, and you need to have at least $1,000, right? If you can take away those three things, and you can be wherever, whenever, but in a way that's realistic, and that feels authentic, and you can actually interact without waiting 2 seconds and saying, hello, are you there? Suddenly, you unlock a whole different world of experience and value, and of course, then you monetize that out of your mind. So, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you, and I hand over to Melissa, of course.
Thank you so much, Kumardev. I just so this is obviously our first keynote, and
yes.
Thank you so much for coming here, and thank you everyone for contributing. Now we have drinks. Feel free to have the cocktail, and then we are gonna leave for the dinner. But let me do this properly, because I forgot some people to. Okay, so Coinfest Asia, Coinfest Asia, Jetstar. It would be impossible without them. Thank you. ICP organizers, Mural Fest. They are preparing an amazing one-day experience on the 24th. I'm gonna get to the thing. Aurora Coaching, Level Up, Off-Chain, Bali Collective, Unit, Nexticorn, T-Hub, the Tourism Architect, and Speak Up Monday, Robert. Thank you so much. He's actually behind the whole magic that got us this space, this technical background and everything. What else? Cabana. We are going to have a party tomorrow in Cabana and the closing party on the 27th, 28th. I have 15 free entrants for tomorrow's party. If you think you are contributing and you would like to be there with us, please let us know. And who else? S21. S21, Handan, like all these people. Thank you so much, and let's have some drinks. Cool. Oh, okay. So we have this is just the beginning, just so that you know. So tomorrow we have a whole day NFT pitch event, organized and powered by NFT and Emilio and Bruno. So we're going to be at Secret Spot for all day long thing, and then at 4 p.m. And then we are heading to Cabana for the party, and they're going to be decorated by Burning Man decorators, and everything is going to be fun. And then we have a skate to earn. That's another person I totally forgot to thank. Shank and Rumo Skate, Rumo Park. It's going to be on Sunday. It's one of our inventions. Skate to earn is going to be at Rumo Park, and we're going to have live tattoos and all the crazy Bali things with crypto. So hope to see you there. And then that I'm not sure if it's happening still, but we'll see about it. And then on the 23rd, there's going to be a GameFi day. We're going to host Kaesha's talk, one of our sponsors, and we're going to have a panel discussion to talk about like if the traditional way of doing gaming is it better or a play to earn, what is the actual value that we have there. And then we have the social impact day with Mural Fest. We're going to have diversity panel, social impact panel, and a lot of other contributions. 22nd, we have Speak Up Monday crypto session actually. Again, it's going to be here. It's hosted by Robert. And we're going to have important participation with different, like Ida coming for some keynotes and our local actors behind this whole magic. And then Coinfest Asia for 2 days, 25th, 26th, we're going to have a 2-day conference, an international conference, and there are many side events happening after that. On the 27th, we have a mastermind in Cabana. If you think you want to participate that and you want to have that invite, please also talk to, I don't know, talk to who, maybe Cecilia, sorry. And we are going to have, there's going to be a local after party on the 27th, organized by Gontar. What are they? Utopia? Yeah, they run Utopia. So, yeah. Developers and communities. Yeah, that's also important. So keep if you have the those flyers, we have a barcode, QR code to join and to join the Crypto Week Bali community on Telegram, and you can keep up with us there. And thank you so much.